Good evening. This side Rahul Magan here as a Group Chief Executive Officer Treasury Consulting. As we speak, Treasury Consulting is a multinational, multi asset hedge fund whereby we actively take positions in multiple countries across the globe. But like I repeated many times, that we are a proprietary hedge fund. By proprietary, I mean no third party. I repeat, no third party can invest capital in our funds. Today, I would like to cover a very important, which is close to my heart, which is known as financing agreements in power purchase agreement. PPA, power purchase agreement. I already had two videos about power purchase agreement on the YouTube channel, but I would like to explain a little bit about PPA. Power purchase agreement is nothing but a legal and binding contract. Please note that it's a legal and binding contract which is signed between buyer, the buyer of the power. The buyer of the power could be some oil refinery, maybe a big manufacturing plant, it might be a very big gas plant, it might be a power grid himself, and seller could be independent power producer, which is shortly known as IPP, which means the private power players. It might be an exchange, just like in India we have PTC India, which is an electricity exchange of India. Similarly, in Singapore we have different electricity exchange. US we have different electricity exchange. Or it might be some sovereign entity. By sovereign entity means that entity of the government, be it any country, who is selling the power. We need to understand that power is a long gestation business. So it is not a chola bhatura business whereby you just invest 20,000, 30,000 and returns immediately coming provided quality in the food. Hygiene is maintained and so on and so forth. It's a long gestation business. Hydropower plants, machinery, turbines, and what not to do, the wiring, the cables, the metering, the discoms. It's a big industry and it's a long gestation industry. If you look at any power company of the globe, any power company of the globe who is into a business of in a business of last 10-15 years, you will see they are in debt. That's very important. Like in case of Tata Power, if you go to their balance sheet, and unfortunately most of the times people never refer to balance sheet, you will see that Tata Power is in a huge debt. So power is not a chola bhatura business. It's a very time and gestation and capital expensive business. In some cases, the change of technology, the change of metering solution, the change of network, cables, and whatnot, maybe some uneventual situation like wars and all, it ends up being a more capital expensive solution. In every PPA, there is one buyer and there is one seller. Now, please note that seller is never be the Warren Buffett or Bill Gates always, right? There are sellers, those who have a hand to mouth issue, which means that their balance sheets are stressed up. They cannot take so much financing in their books. They cannot give big credit line to their buyers. Try and understand. In this eventuality, in many cases, you would notice that the seller of the power always needs a financing agreement, I would say, whereby he would be able to hold the capital to produce the power. You know, guys, in every power purchase agreement, I repeat, in every power purchase agreement, there is supposed to be two kind of agreements. Number one is the financing agreement, and number two is the co-financing agreement. Now, when I say financing instrument agreement, I mean to say that it could be letter of credit, it could be standby letter of credit, it could be bank guarantee, it could be direct pay letter of credit, it could be subordinate bonds, or we have variety of lending structures by the bank. Please note that when you are signing a power purchase agreement, it's not about India. Wherever you are signing a power purchase agreement, always have your financing agreements in place. More importantly, you are supposed to share your financing agreement with your buyer. You must be thinking while watching the video that why do you need to share your financing agreement with the buyer? So I'll give you an example. Suppose you are a power producer in US, example, and US government is signing a power purchase agreement with you to give power to New York and near about places like Manhattan, New Jersey and all. Suppose you are supposed to give 20 megawatts per month to facilitate the New York and by nearby areas. The funding, basically, like I said, power is a long gestation business. The funding which you are getting, the funding is getting from the standby letter of credit, shortly known as SBLC, from JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs. This you clearly mentioned in your contract, and you also explicitly, I repeat, explicitly mentioned in your contract that I am able to produce the power because I have a funding line which is given up by Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan. Assume 6 months passed of signing the contract and there is a financial crisis in the world, and because of this financial crisis, the banks freezed their credit lines. It generally happened in 2008. The same thing had happened when the bank freezed their credit lines. In this eventuality, your credit line is also freezed. Now, when your credit line is freezed, you are forced but not to give the power to the US government because you don't have the working capital in your hand to give the power. Now, in this eventuality, the American government cannot sue you. American government cannot take you to the court because in the contract you clearly mentioned that the working capital arrangement is all subject to the SBLC issued by JP Morgan Chase and Goldman Sachs amounting 1 billion, 2 billion, whatever number you say. Now, since there is a financial crisis, and financial crisis mean all newspapers and everything is full of that, you can easily, in a very first hearing, you can tell to the court of law, to the honorable court, that guys, just see, we have a financial crisis. Goldman JP freezed my credit lines, and because of that, I am unable to honor my commitment. In this eventuality, the decision will go in your favor. But I have seen variety of PPA agreements in which it is not specifically or explicitly mentioned. End result, court, law, time, money, all this. So please do understand the requirement of that as well.